So we usually had a couple of guys in the back, and we use starlight scopes and that kind of stuff. We have a technician in the back. Sometimes we do that kind of stuff, and we would be able to communicate securely through the Loran. Actually, would send a data burst. And every time we get to a turn point, we'd push the button and they would know our position. Then we had an emergency switch. If we were in trouble, it would give out a constant position. And we were followed by a couple of helicopters from a distance off to the side in a more secure area all the time. In case something happened, they could hopefully pick us up. And but we were coming down there one night. I was with Pete Parker. He was flying and I was navigating. So we were almost at the end of our run, down around the southern edge of the Bolivans Plateau, south of Paksay. And we had a little radar fire control, acquisition and radar and fire control radar detector that would hang on the step outside the left door. And an instrument inside with a scope on it that would show you from which quadrant the radar was coming, and also had a red light that would come on if you had a missile launch. Well, we're tooling along there fat and dumb and happy. You know, it was a moonlit night, everything, you know, good weather, beautiful. All of a sudden that scope lit up and all four quadrants lit up. We were right on top of the radar, right on top of it. And a whole bunch of tracers came up right in front of the nose, very near. And Pete did the only thing that would have saved us. He made a right turn, and we were high enough, we were over the top of the plateau, and he put the cliff between us and the gun. It went down like that. We could see the trees in the moonlight. And that was it. Now, what may have happened, I think it was one of those 4-barrel 23 millimeters that's on tracks, had its own radar. And they'd snuck that down the trail, and they'd sneak it down, at night, and then camouflage it in the day. They worked it down there. And I think probably the radar was set for a faster moving airplane. That's why they shot in front of it. If they hadn't had any tracers, we would have flown into it. If Pete hadn't done it.
It's all right.
If I wasn't talking to you, I wouldn't get it.
I know. It's because it's me. I know.
But if he hadn't done the only thing he could have done, instantly would have been blown out of the sky.
When you did the right thing.
And it had to be an instant reaction because we were moving 120 knots.
Now I know why he used to come home every night with his eyeballs big in the morning.
But we had other incidents, when we were flying together, when tracers would come up right out the window, We could hear them. We'd fly with the window cracked so we could hear the sonic boom when it went by. But this was one of those things when you're locked in on radar, you've had it.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we should have come out of that.
Yeah, dude. Well, you guys train all your life to fly like that. And hopefully you do the right thing at the right time. And
well, if you don't, you're dead,
Yeah. Did you work with Pete with the terrain following radar stuff?
Yeah.
And Jimmy Pearson? And
yeah, we did that. We had some liners that had the terrain following radar in it. And we started out with one. One was especially built with it in there. It was airplane came from the States.
It's a Twin Otter?
Yeah.
Was it the
brand new with
the black bottom with I know I've seen
It was navy blue on the bottom and very dark blue on the sides and the wing bottoms, and only the top, was white, so if you could see it from the air. It had a special nose cone on it.
It was a little bit larger
A
than
little
the
bit
normal
larger, a
cone.
little bit longer, a little bit different shape. And the radar,
What was the mission behind that aircraft, and what was it really all about? I
it was
mean,
going places where we didn't want anybody to know we were going. Because you could get right down in the hills with it. But let me tell you about the installation. At that time, a new airplane cost $500,000. Well, the engineering bill just to figure out how to install the radar cost $1 million. Plus the equipment that was put in it was, I don't know, another $1 million or so. So they spent a lot of money on this thing. And we would do a lot of training, very intense training, but we would flight plan about 10 hours for every hour we flew it. We plotted out on the chart, mile by mile, and we had to have both engine generators working to drive this thing, because we had to put extra inverters in it. We had a 2500 volt amp inverter that was extra, and another static inverter or two. So to drive all that, we had to have both generators working. And then you could have a failure in the radar system itself. And I also had 2 radar altimeters that were tied in with it, and a Doppler and all this other stuff. So you had to know which way to turn. If you had some kind of failure, you had to know which way do I go to get out of this hole I'm flying in the dark.
how high off the ground would you typically be flying?
Well, the radar would go down to 188 feet. It had detents when you set the altitude that wanted you to fly at like 1,500, 250 feet. But if you screwed it all the way down, it would go to 188 feet. Well, we didn't fly it that low. I mean, that's kind of dumb. So we would do night training missions with it, which we would plot out in very great detail. And one person would typically do one part of the flight plan, another guy another part, and then they'd check each other's work. So we didn't have any accidents doing that kind of stuff. Same way on the trail. There's a lot of cross-checking, a lot of flight planning. So, go ahead.
Okay. The workings of it is very interesting, but what was the reason?
Why were we doing
Yeah,
this?
were you taking photographs? Were you?
No.
Oh,
We were
okay.
just going into areas and
Dropping things?
dropping people
Okay.
or dropping things to people that were already on the ground in areas that were way behind the enemy lines. And we were going to, the purpose for it was to get under the radar.
Okay.
And hopefully we would be able to plot a course around known enemy positions, and we wouldn't be flying over and say, hey, fly over a whole battalion of bad guys, there went an airplane, wonder where he's going. So we try to go around them as much as possible.
Did you have hush kits on those engines? to keep
No,
them
they were
quiet?
just very quiet anyway. We'd run at 100, we flight planned that at 130 knots with the power pulled back some, and it was a very quiet running engines. So it was kind of a sneaky airplane type deal.
Anything exciting? Any particular nights where things? Anything that comes to mind, maybe?
No.
As long as all the equipment was working properly.
Yeah. It's very intense. It's like you'd have an instrument that give you a fly up or down. So you'd kind of follow that with the nose of the airplane. And of course, in those mountains, you had mountains you couldn't climb. It's beyond the performance capability of the airplane. So that's why you had to plan around things. And then you'd have connected to the Loran another needle, like a VOR needle. So that gave you a direction. So it's like flying an ILS for 4 hours, only you didn't have, you're going up and down and right and left like this all the time, and the needles weren't on the same instrument. So that's a real challenge. It takes a lot of concentration. Then you got one guy's flying and following the needles, the other guy's is keeping up with where you are on the radar scope. See, well, you had different settings on on the radar. You could just show the terrain that was just the terrain that was above you, or you could show all the mountains and valleys and stuff.
So in essence,
It only looked at 16.8 miles, so you didn't you kind of had to know which way you're going all the time.
So one person kind of flies the other
The other guy navigates.
One person flies the radar, so to speak.
The radar, yeah, it's just same stuff's in the 111. It came out of the F-111. We just put in a little airplane, a little commuter airliner, twin turboprop.
Sorry.
You're just glad to get home a lot of times. I think there are different aspects of some projects where some people were doing some things and some people were doing other things, and they didn't really communicate to each other what they were doing, because it's the essence of security to keep down to a minimum the number of people that knew about a certain thing.